History has a way of whispering before it screams. Across millennia, civilizations have been shown the cracks in their foundations, subtle signs, small tremors, preliminary omens, yet, too often, these whispers were ignored. Today, we uncover 10 chilling moments where warnings came in stages, yet humanity's arrogance, complacency, or denial led to disaster. Some were floods, others famines, and some collapse of entire empires, all avoidable, at least in the first stage. Before we dive, remember, if understanding history's subtle alarms intrigues you, hit subscribe and join our journey through the hidden lessons of humanity. Because what was ignored once might still be ignored today. Warning 10. Mesopotamian flood markers ignored. Long before the Great Flood stories became legends, Mesopotamia's rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, sent early warnings. Clay tablets reveal localized flooding over decades, fields submerged, canals overflowing, seasonal high waters creeping past historical norms. Farmers patched levees and rebuilt homes repeatedly. Yet, political leaders, distracted by power struggles, dismissed these as minor setbacks. The warning signs were gradual. A small crop loss one year, slightly higher waters the next. Eventually, when the rivers finally swelled beyond any containment, entire city-states were engulfed. Mesopotamia's cradle of civilization was nearly erased, leaving only ruins and fragmented memory. Present-day parallel. Modern flood-prone regions, from Bangladesh to New Orleans, face similar staged warnings. Small-scale floods happen annually, yet urban development often ignores them, creating conditions for catastrophic damage. Lesson: nature rarely sends a single loud alarm. Ignoring the incremental signs is often the first step toward irreversible disaster. Warning 9. Indus Valley drainage failures. In the sprawling cities of the Indus Valley, sewage and drainage were engineering marvels, yet early signs of failure appeared centuries before the eventual decline. Archaeologists note partial canal collapses, seasonal waterlogging, and clogged streets disrupting daily life. Officials initially patched sections, blaming bad luck rather than systemic infrastructure decay. Over generations, the problem compounded. When the monsoons struck with force, homes, granaries, and marketplaces flooded. Slowly, this eroded the economic base and social order. Present-day parallel. Modern cities with outdated drainage systems face similar staged warnings. Mumbai, Jakarta, and Karachi experience annual water crises, minor signs first, then full-scale urban disruption. Lesson: gradual neglect is often a hidden killer, silently undermining resilience. Warning 8. Byzantine border raids before collapse. The Byzantine Empire faced relentless pressure on its borders. Historical records detail repeated small-scale raids in Anatolia and the Balkans. Initially, these were localized villages raided, minor garrisons lost. Leaders considered them manageable irritations. However, over decades, these incremental attacks weakened regional control, drained treasury resources, and strained military readiness. When larger invasions came, the empire had fewer reserves and diminished morale. By the time the final blow arrived, Decades of staged warnings had been ignored, making the fall almost inevitable. Present-day parallel. Modern nations ignoring border skirmishes, cyber intrusions, or minor territorial conflicts risk long-term destabilization if incremental pressures are overlooked. Lesson: small, repeated breaches in security are harbingers of eventual collapse if strategic inattention persists. Warning 7. Ming famine signals before rebellion. In the 16th century, China's Ming dynasty faced subtle famine signs long before the Great Rebellions. Local records mention poor harvests, rising grain prices, and malnutrition in isolated regions. Authorities sent tax inspectors, but corruption and bureaucratic inertia delayed meaningful intervention. By the time widespread famine struck, peasant unrest had solidified into organized rebellion. The dynasty faced internal collapse, compounded by opportunistic foreign pressures. Present-day parallel. Early warnings of famine, economic stress, or food insecurity often appear in developing nations. Ignoring early-stage indicators can escalate into large-scale crises, as seen in parts of Africa and Yemen. Lesson: neglecting early signs of societal stress risks explosive consequences. Warning 6. French bread shortages before revolution. Parisian streets whispered the early signs of the coming storm. Small bakeries noted rising flour prices, occasional shortages, and minor riots in poorer districts. Aristocrats dismissed these as temporary inconveniences. But the staged warnings escalated. Seasonal bad harvests, speculative hoarding, and tax increases compounded the problem. By 1789, France erupted in revolution, the monarchy blindsided by years of ignored alerts. Present-day parallel. Economic warning signals, such as inflation or localized food scarcity, often precede social unrest. Governments that treat early-stage crises lightly risk systemic upheaval. Lesson: gradual socioeconomic stress can cascade into irreversible societal change. Warning 5. Japanese earthquake precedents before Fukushima. Japan is a nation of seismic knowledge, yet the Fukushima disaster of 2011 was preceded by decades of minor tremors and near misses. Tsunami modeling in the 1960s already showed the eastern coast vulnerable. Small evacuations and minor flood damages were early alarms. Government and corporate overconfidence, a belief in technology and engineering superiority, led to inaction on staged warnings. When the magnitude 9 quake struck, coupled with the tsunami, Fukushima became a nightmare that could have been mitigated. Present-day parallel. Climate-induced disasters and infrastructure risks around the world are often preceded by minor warnings. Ignoring them amplifies catastrophic potential. Lesson: incremental natural signals, if disregarded, magnify human vulnerability. Warning 4. Aral Sea early shrinkage reports. Satellite data in the 1960s first revealed the Aral Sea's gradual retreat. Local fishermen noted receding waters and increasing salinity, warning signs that threatened livelihoods and regional climate. Authorities initially downplayed the situation, prioritizing irrigation projects over ecosystem preservation. Decades later, the Aral Sea had almost vanished, leaving environmental devastation, economic collapse, and public health crises. Present-day parallel. Environmental degradation, from deforestation to aquifer depletion, often begins with subtle, staged warnings. Ignoring them risks irreversible damage. Lesson: ecological systems offer early-stage signals. Ignoring them accelerates collapse. Warning 3. Khmer water imbalance. Decades before fall, Angkor Wat's empire depended on intricate water management. Early signs of system strain. Seasonal droughts, partial reservoir failures emerged decades before societal decline. Political elites ignored incremental warnings, focusing on ceremonial grandeur. When prolonged droughts struck, irrigation networks faltered, agriculture failed, and rebellion became inevitable. Present-day parallel. Modern nations reliant on delicate water systems face similar staged warnings. Minor shifts in rainfall patterns today may foretell future crises. Lesson: complex societal systems are sensitive to gradual ecological imbalances. Warning 2. Norse Greenland cooling signs. The Norse settlers of Greenland experienced decades of subtle climate cooling, shorter growing seasons, frozen fjords, and declining fish stocks. Early warnings were documented in sagas and letters, yet communities relied on traditional crops and trade links. Gradual environmental shifts culminated in societal collapse, isolation, and eventual abandonment. Minor early signs were survivable individually, but ignored in sequence, they became fatal. Present-day parallel. Polar regions and high-latitude communities today face incremental climate shifts. Observed trends may foreshadow collapse if adaptation is delayed. Lesson: staged environmental warnings, when overlooked, erode human resilience over generations. Warning 1. Modern housing bubble. Early alarms. Before the 2008 financial crash, economists issued incremental warnings: rising mortgage defaults, overleveraged banks, and speculative buying. Early signals were survivable individually, but policymakers ignored or downplayed them. By the time the bubble burst, global markets trembled. Millions lost homes, jobs, and savings. Modern society paying a steep price for ignoring staged warnings. Present-day parallel. Current financial, energy, and real estate markets are showing subtle early-stage signs of imbalance. Ignoring them risks repeating history. Lesson: even today, staged warnings across complex systems, finance, climate, geopolitics foreshadow crises. Attentive monitoring and proactive action remain humanity's best defense. History whispers in increments. Each ignored stage of warning compounds risk. Today, the same pattern repeats. From climate signals to economic bubbles, from geopolitical skirmishes to infrastructure strain. Are we listening to incremental signs of climate collapse before it's irreversible? Will early-stage geopolitical tensions be treated as warnings or distractions? How many small disasters today foreshadow tomorrow's societal shock? Humanity's survival has always depended on attention to the gradual alarms. Will we heed them, or repeat the mistakes of Mesopotamia, the Ming, and Norse Greenland?